It's always great to be home, really. Last time I was in Haiti, a young man working at the hotel where I stayed, a Haitian young man, said to me, "I suppose you wonder why I'm looking at you so much." No, I hadn't wondered that. He said, "You look exactly like my mother except for your skin and your hair." But I want to tell you, there's somebody here in your church who looks exactly like me, including her skin and her hair. She was up here in the choir this morning. That's Kendra St. John. We're both Beardsley girls, and she'll be at the table in the back if you feel led to sponsor one of these kids. It's an honor to speak up, and what a perfect opportunity. So thank you, Pastor Mark. Now, I do sometimes teach preaching, and I'm about to do what I tell the students never to do. I'm going to take a snippet of a verse, and then I'm going to just launch off from it and not come back to it, because the rest of the sermon will be illustration of the verse, okay? So, you know, the angels appeared to the shepherds. I don't have to give you the context, really. And he said, the angel reassured these frightened shepherds, "Don't be afraid. I bring you good news that will bring great joy to all people." So here's my 3-point sermon. Good news, great joy for all people. And now we're going to see some of the ways that this is being lived out around the world, that this is coming true when we pray every single day, "Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven." I want to give you a little glimpse into some of the places where that's the case. This week, thousands of children in our program around the world will be enacting the Christmas story. So in India, for instance, where these kids are, we have about 1,500 kids living in hostels, and almost all of them come from Hindu backgrounds. So now thousands of parents will come in for Christmas programs in the coming week. And many of them will see for the very first time the story that we take for granted and we've seen enacted so many times. So pray for them that the message is real and transforms hearts and minds and lives, even this week, as the Christmas story is lived out around the world. Just a little context here. The Free Methodist Church, of which you are a part, began in 1860. But I'm jumping almost 100 years into our history to look at a quick glimpse of 1950, our global membership. Just notice the purple part, which is the US, Canada, and the UK, which were all one at that time. And we were 3/4 of the global world population. So in our first century, we got started with missions. 20 years later, we're about half. Not that we've shrunk, but that missions areas have grown. And then in 1990, we're still that purple thing, but we're only about 1/4 there. And then 2013, the most recent year in which I have statistics for you, we're down to 7% of the global Free Methodist membership. And I hear that we're now down to about 6%. I'm also told that these statistics around the world don't include children, and that there are probably twice as many children as adults in the world, in the church. And so we have the privilege of standing alongside the church around the world as it grows rapidly. So we have about 20,000 of those kids. I know you can't read all those countries, but it's distributed out that way. 37% in Haiti, 36% in Africa, 19% in Asia, 8% in Latin America, and a very few in the Middle East. So here's the deal. You have in your Jesus birthday offering 20 options that are part of the global reach of your church. Most of those are missionaries, but several of those are projects like ICCM that are the fruit of Free Methodist World Missions. And by the way, I'm grateful that you're also involved in all of these local projects. Many of you are serving, giving your own time and your own love and prayers and resources to Jackson County and local projects. But today I'm representing the other 20, the global ones. And here's what you should know. We are the fruit of Free Methodist World Missions, which means now that 31 of 32 of our national coordinators are citizens of those countries. Missionaries used to do these jobs, but now we are putting resources into the hands of the people who are best able to use them locally. And it does make a difference for their own economy and for their own churches that these people are in charge. So we still have a supervisory role. I have 7 regional coordinators around the world. We have to work on audits and bookkeeping and all kinds of things like that, but the vision and the hard work and the joy is carried forward by people right where those children are. A little history. 50 years ago, we were born in Hong Kong. And the recipients of sponsorship were Chinese refugee children. And there were rooftop schools provided by the Free Methodist Church. Now, that was 50 years ago. This is today. The Free Methodist Church in Jordan, through ICCM and many other means, is reaching out to about 20,000 refugees from Iraq and Syria every month. You don't hear a lot about it. It's pretty quiet. But just like the need was there 50 years ago, if you looked at your computer this morning or the news with Aleppo, the needs are still urgent today, and the church is compassionately reaching out to meet the needs of the kids. We were also 50 years ago born in India, where hostels are a part of the cultural norm. So that's a residence where children can go and live so that they can have access to a public school, basically. And Christians around India have welcomed thousands of children into this Christian home. So they have access to a school which they could otherwise never reach on foot. And they also then are in the embrace of the church. Let's look at a few, but first I want to show you Dr. Stella Bokhari, who is our South Asia Regional Coordinator. Some of you might recognize the other woman in this photo. That's Dr. Kathy Stonehouse, who had her career at Asbury Seminary in Kentucky. Now in her retirement years, she spends half of the year at Asia Pacific Nazarene Theological Seminary in Manila, the Philippines, and can you believe it? Our woman from India went to the Philippines and became the first graduate in the Holistic Child Development PhD program, and her dissertation was on the impact of AIDS on children. So now Stella is leading our work in India, Nepal, and Bangladesh. So here she is with our Umri hostel. Here we are at the Ambernath hostel. If you ever saw Slumdog Millionaire, these are the kids. These are the boys, I tell you. And this one is the Bangalore hostel. There's something special about this particular place. It is spiritually so alive when those kids sing and dance and pray. In fact, the leader asked, when I was there in September, a boy and a girl to come up front and pray for Stella and me. And that girl prayed like your grandmother. She knows this living God, and when she took a hold of the horns of the altar, that girl prayed. But I tell you this also, I wanted to take a picture of one of those particular boys, one boy in this hostel, because my cousin Alan Cleveland was sponsoring that boy. And I was there before, and I got a picture and, texted it to Alan. It was kind of fun. Well, they told me this boy, who is a senior, supposed to be a senior in high school, is no longer here. And I said, why? And he said, this boy and two of his friends were so on fire for the Lord that when they went home to their Hindu village over the summer, they witnessed, and they witnessed openly, and the village rose up against them and their parents, and the village told their parents, if you allow these boys to go back to this Christian place, we're going to make it miserable on you the whole time. And so the parents forbade these boys to finish out high school because the Christian influence had transformed them so thoroughly. So I was asked to give a little Bible story to these kids. I decided to talk about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, in case they hadn't heard the story. So I'm talking about these three brave Hebrew children who were thrown into the fire, and then I said to the kids, so when they looked into the fire, they didn't see three kids, three young men. How many men did they see in the fire? And these children shouted out in one voice, 4! So I knew that they already knew the story, and they were prepared for opposition. We've also been given 3 girls' homes in the south of India where girls are particularly vulnerable to trafficking and where they rarely have the opportunity to go to high school. And look at the kids who are there. This is Anandpuram, which is also in the south of India. The guy in the middle who's having a lot of fun is named Trevor Owen. Last month he was just there with a visa team from Oregon. And the visa team went to teach Free Methodist pastors. But while they were there, they just had to visit the hostel. And I just wanted to remind you that it's a deeply connected system. When you go on a visa trip, you could very likely visit an ICCM ministry around the world. And Trevor just sent us some great photos. And these are some of those beautiful young women who are finding an opportunity for an education in a Christian environment that they would have never had except for sponsorship. So thank you. Hundreds of you are already sponsoring. Let's go on to Haiti. I know a lot of you have even gone on mission trips to Haiti, so you've seen with your own eyes that we have 53 primary schools and 6 secondary schools in Haiti, in which we have more than 6,000 sponsored children, about 20,000 total children. That's Mondale Perkins' Oscar, who's our Haiti coordinator. And can you tell what he's standing next to? Bolts and bolts and bolts of fabric. That's for the bottom half of these kids' uniforms. And I want to remind you that sometimes there's some critique about sponsoring children because it seems like you're just throwing money kind of non-strategically. But I got to tell you that if we hire 450 teachers and 50 school directors and a bunch of tailors and a bunch of cooks and we buy our things locally, our books, our materials, our food, we are impacting in a holistic way the culture. And also, almost all of those schools have been a part of a church plant. So we're the leading edge of a church planting movement in Haiti. You've also heard of the Haiti Food Fund, and it's one of your options in your Jesus Birthday wish list. He said, "I was hungry and you fed me." Well, I got to tell you, an awful lot of kids in Haiti are truly hungry, and the meal they receive at school is often their only meal of the day. So thank you to all of you who support this fund. 15 cents provides a lunch. A lot of you have also provided goats. In your Jesus Birthday wish list, there's a goat for $60. It makes a difference for a family. We also have some managed projects where the goats can benefit a school or a hostel. Many of you may have heard a year and a half ago when, for a month, right up during General Conference, Bartolome Lucci, who was our education director, who was married to beautiful Carlene, who was our deputy finance manager, Bartolome was kidnapped and murdered. It was a horrible, horrible thing. In August, Carlene and the children moved to Montreal, and she has a job there, and they're doing well to recover from this trauma. It set us back, that tragedy, but God is good, and now the Lord has given us someone for each of those positions, and we're up and functioning again. You know, if you know Haiti, you know that obstacles just never cease, but God is good, and God is faithful. We had the first commencement last June of Haiti Providence University, and really, other than my own personal highlights like marriage and birth of children, it was one of the high points of my life to be at this commencement and to see the clarity of the vision and the power of what Jean-Marc Zamor and his team are doing, which is totally countercultural in Haiti. We can support college kids there through our Emerging Leaders program. I was asked to speak at chapel on the last day of school in June for the Parc Chrétien Church School. There were about 800 kids in the sanctuary, and before I stood up to preach, somebody said, "Let's pray," and all 800 kids stood up, turned around, got on their knees, and started praying out loud. And the buzz in the room of these children imploring God just moved me to tears. I thought, why am I up here standing and preaching? These kids are learning the most important things in life, and our team in Haiti majors on the majors, even in the midst of all of their physical and material challenges. Remember Hurricane Matthew? Just happened a few weeks ago. We had 1 school destroyed and 7 badly damaged. Mostly the roofs were blown off. We've been able to distribute 1,500 water filters that people graciously donated in the last month. And some of you know Kendra Luna, who is completely intrepid. She was able to get a hold of MAF flights and helicopters to get up into the remote areas and then hike 8 hours up a muddy mountainside to make sure these people got water filters because cholera is raging in that area. 50 years ago, we also started in Africa. First country was Democratic Republic of the Congo. We stand in line of a great tradition. John Wesley himself, in the 18th century England, was said by historians to be the only leader who cared about educating all classes of children. And now we stand in that legacy, and I want to show you a few of the children we're able to educate in Africa. In Congo now, the Free Methodist Church has hundreds of schools, and we don't sponsor the children in those schools. It's a wonderful arrangement. The government pays the teachers, but what we do is we support this man here who provides education for religion teachers and chaplains. And then he takes water filters, helps them with animal projects, takes Bibles and songbooks so that we can resource those hundreds of schools through special projects. There's a school in Ethiopia, and Our challenge there is great. We have excellent schools in a place that's really a battleground between Christianity and Islam, but we're grateful to be able to reach Ethiopian kids in every way. We also have a new thing called Connected Communities, where one church here will partner up with someone, another place, a school or a church somewhere else. And so this is Pastor Wally Fleming from Pierce Memorial Church in Rochester, New York, and they're paired up with Nzige School in Rwanda. You've met Bishop Samuel from Rwanda. He's been in this pulpit before, and it's a beautiful partnership. One of the fun things is that Pierce bought a chicken for every child in that school. So I've seen pictures of 3-year-olds trying to get a boiled egg peeled for lunch because they're providing this protein for those kids a couple of days a week now. We also have in Rwanda a place called Rushashi, which is a study center. Really, it's a daycare center and a respite center for kids with special needs, because in that culture, there's no special ed. There are virtually no physical therapists. And so we started off several years ago with one center called Amizero, where we started helping out families who have children with special needs, physically and mentally. And then we added a second one called Rushashi, and we have about a dozen of those kids available. I think several of them were taken during the first service, but it's a privilege. Talk about reaching all levels of society. These kids are really at the bottom of the heap in Rwanda. And then something pretty exciting, our kids in Kenya, our schools have only gone through 8th grade, and the government doesn't have enough high schools, and so they pretty much only take kids from public school into high school, so a lot of our kids had to drop out of school after 8th grade. But now we have our first boys' school. There are 4 buildings on the campus, and the boys are showing up to start classes on January 9th. Now, I do have a prayer request for you. The electricity authority has been dragging their feet for a whole year, waiting for a bribe. But we have now just a couple of weeks to get electricity on that campus. So will you pray that we get electricity before January 9th? Here are the leaders, pretty excited about the project. Now they've got the keys. That's Bishop Hawkins in the middle there. And that's excitement, just scratching the surface on Africa. Now, have you heard of the 414 movement? 4 to 14 is a window of opportunity in a child's heart when they're open to spiritual things. More than 80% of people who ever give their lives to Christ do it between the ages of 4 and 14. So this is one of our newer strategies, one of our awareness areas where we're helping to stand alongside the global church as they reach children for Jesus. Here's one place, and some of you have been to Myanmar, a heavily Buddhist country. I call that picture the ideal and the real. And then we have orphans and other children. You can see Seth Van Tiffelen, who's one of the missionaries that you support through Jesus' birthday, right there in Myanmar with our home in Phalam. This is our national coordinator. His name is Vong Vong, and that's the kind of road he goes on to get up to Phalam. And he has to have 3 other friends come on their own motorbikes every time he does a distribution with the letters from the sponsors and the money. And why is that? Because when, not if, the motorcycle falls down the side of the mountain, it takes 3 extra guys to help you pull it back up. And this is our national committee in that place. In each country, we have a national committee to do leadership in that place. And one of your options in your Jesus birthday offering is to give $25 that will cover a month of preschool for these Buddhist kids at Light and Life Child Care Center in Yangon. And it's a culture that cares very much about education, and families are very interested in having their children get a good academic head start. And it's a lovely, lovely ministry. So thanks for those of you who have supported it. In fact, I think, your sister supported it in a big way and got lots of people here to do it. Maybe we can start that again. This is our friend Kevin Austin.
I'm Kevin Austin, director of the Set Free Movement, and I'm here in Chiang Rai, Thailand, visiting ICCM's Lahu Hostel. This was one of the very first Freedom Sunday projects that ICCM did, and it was done in order to provide a safe place for children to live while they're going to school in the city, because they live up in the mountains. And so they were coming down to go to school in the city, but they were not finding adequate places to live, and they were in danger of being trafficked, in danger of all sorts of abuses. So currently there are about 24 children that are living here, getting the care and the support that they need. And the children are growing up, and so we need to expand the property. We need to build some other buildings So you'll be hearing about this in the future, opportunities for you to give so that we can continue to care for children and prevent them from human trafficking as well as other injustices. So I want to thank you for supporting ICCM. Thank you for supporting the Set Free movement. Thank you for participating in Freedom Sunday, and look for more information about this Lahu project as we go forward. All right, thank you. Sawadi krap.
Kevin has helped us in helping the church around the world to be aware of the trafficking issues right under their nose. So this happens to be a home in Bogota, Colombia. All of these girls' mothers are either living on the street or they're incarcerated or drug addicts. Yet the church provides a safe place, and these girls' lives are being beautifully transformed. It's a pretty wonderful opportunity in several places to work with kids who are most vulnerable to trafficking. Here's our program in the Philippines. It's beautiful to see. And so these partnerships that we have are part of how the good news, which brings great joy, is making its way around the world. When I see Glenn and Wendy, I think about the fact that I have an email from somebody in Costa Rica asking if we could get started there. Because wherever the church works, there are children who need to be loved and brought in for programs and attached to the church and usually fed, sometimes protected. And wherever the church does that, they now understand that we work together to do that. I have a final video that I'd like you to take a few minutes to look at, just to remind us all that as good as the good news is, and as far as it's reached, it isn't done yet. There are still children in need, and they have eternity in their hearts, and they're praying for safety, for home, for love.